program stopped, and we stopped on parts of the installations. We hope to start ramping a lot of that stuff up pretty soon. As a matter of fact, we've already started scheduling some CPR classes, so we're happy to kind of get back to somewhat normal on that. As we reflect back on the year, you know, they start the year out unsure like everybody else was. You know, when everything came about mid-March, you know, we didn't know where we were getting our PPE from. You know, they did a really good job between Chief Bailey and Captain Webster as far as securing PPE so that our folks can stay protected when making the runs like that. But they still continue to make all the runs and all the calls. And that included, you know, 553 fire responses, 1,336 EMS responses for a total of 1,888. And when I look at those numbers on there on a 5-year average, that's a 7% increase. So we're gradually increasing our run volume, and it's mainly EMS driven. Last year we saw a fire loss of a little over $380,000, and that was driven because we had 3 major house fires in the city. And then despite all the code, we're still able to get our staff out in the businesses, and we completed 281 fire inspections. So that was a pretty good job right there, because fire inspections is right in fire prevention, and hopefully that'll prevent anything from happening. And September was actually a big time, especially for Chief Bailey, because he's tried so many times to receive the federal funding for the radios. And that was a pretty significant project right there. That was 3 years in the making, so that was a big relief off his shoulders right there. In November, as the crews came up and demonstrated for the council, was we received our Lucas CPR device, and I tried to do a rough numbers as far as how many times we use this system. We used it about 12 times already on that. Also in November, they received a new ambulance, so they put the new ambulance in service there, and then they eventually sold the other ambulance to Fort Wright Fire Department. And then, you know, to kind of cap off the year in December, we saw the retirement of Chief Bailey. And as you know, he retired from the city for 16 years of service. You know, he guided us through a lot of different projects and changes that we had within the fire department. And, you know, I had some big shoes to fill, and you know, I feel like he's prepared me well. So it's really all I have, you know, on the annual report. I'm happy to answer any questions that we looked at over the year. Like I said, it was a pretty challenging year that we had all had to deal with.
You got a challenging year ahead of you, the move, and so
Yeah.
2 good years to come on here. So
We hit the ground running, and that's all right. You know,
you're gonna come out with a big win on top. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're all excited. The crews are excited to come up here, get for change of scenery,
Sure.
and just kind of interact with city staff again, and we're excited with the finished project as well, because we can't wait for that.
It's only apparatus, it may be an afterwards.
It will be, as long as we stay above freezing, which is, you know, what we kind of did, you know, from May 1st, you know, 3 or 4 months, however long it takes, it'll be fine. Greg Mouse has already worked, you know, as far as getting shoreline, so we always have power out there and everything like that. You know, talking to Chief Kilgore, they're going to continue to kind of patrol the area. Even the VA folks, they're going to be kind enough to, you know, with their security, you know, kind of keep an eye on things, but we really don't anticipate anything happening. And we're still going to have the station available to us, in the fact that if we get a fire or something like that, we have a lot of cleanup and everything. All that stuff's still going to remain up at the station, so we'll have to clean our gear, our hose, and everything like that. So it could be in the middle of the night, we have all the bay doors open and we're washing other stuff, but the bays we're still going to have access to.
We were talking about before the meeting how blessed we are to have all these facilities like the mess hall and the armory and all these other places that we can use temporarily while we're working on the city building.
Yeah, we actually turned out, we have plenty of space up here for temporary relocation.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you for the annual report. Great job.
Thanks.
We need a motion to signify that one?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next on the agenda, the police department annual report.
Thank you, Mayor. In the interest of streamlining things, our annual report has been streamlined this year. We've been on kind of a downward trend, getting away from taking tons of photos and talking about everything possible. We're all the way down to about 20 pages, so if you're hoping for the 80-page magazine, I'm sorry. I don't know that we'll ever get back to that. But with last year being as challenging as it was, as Chief Damon said, a lot of our proactive things that were face-to-face had to be canceled. We weren't doing ride-alongs, we weren't doing tours of our police department, we weren't sending our officers into schools to teach classes to kids. All those things had to take a back seat. So everything last year was scaled down. However, in terms of total calls for the year, we were only at a slight dip to the previous year. Calls for service, people needing assistance, emergencies, domestics, all those things continued in the face of this pandemic. And I believe our dip was somewhere around 7 or 8% of the previous year, which was very small in my opinion, considering that everything was shut down, closed down, and the name of the game was stay away from each other. So our officers made all the adjustments that they could. We were taking reports over the phone. We were asking people to meet outside instead of inside their house if they could. They were able. All the adjustments took place, and I think our community responded well to that. We had a few less written warnings last year. I don't think that's actually an indication that there were less traffic stops, just less actual physical written warnings being handed out to people because, again, the face-to-face contact. And then finally, towards the end of our report, we got a printout from the Drug Task Force about what cases they investigated and how much of each type of drugs they took out of Campbell County. And if you saw that on page 16, heroin has gone down quite a bit to only 9 grams last year. Whereas other drugs have started to move back up, such as methamphetamine. A lot of that is due to supply and demand. When certain drugs or certain groups of people figure out how to make something in a bigger quantity at a lower cost, that drug takes over and replaces other things that are out there. So heroin has been down for a year or two, and methamphetamine has been on the way up. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions about our annual report.
Do we have any questions for the chief? Thanks for the report. Great job. Very good. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you very much, chief. All right. The next item on the new business is consideration of Tower Park playground bids. Those were included in your packet. Scroll back.
Actually, I start on page 13. So we advertised for solicitation for bids for 2 different locations of playground equipment in Tower Park. One will be the finish of the Shelter 3 area. The second one will be partnered with the shelter and restroom building that's planned over here adjacent to the ball field. You can see in the bids they're segregated into 2 different locations. We did receive 2 bids, one from Mid-States Recreation and the other one from Logan Creek LLC. The Mid-States uses it, we bid it as an equivalent, so LSI, Landscape Structures Incorporated, and they can bid their product to that and match it to the bids that way. So it's not the LSI product, but it's their equivalent. Mid-States is the low bid, and there's a significant difference in the bids, as you can note. Logan Creek was $368,665.61, and Mid-States Recreation is $256,823.41. So the due diligence on that, we've had a lot of conversation with the references. They were required to submit references from other communities, public entities where they've done work. We have received nothing but high marks for this company for the locations they've done. Bowling Green, they've done Brown, Ohio, a number of communities in Ohio. Nothing in Northern Kentucky recently in the portfolio, but their structures are equivalent. The cost is obviously less. Their time frame was another consideration. They're looking at a completion in June. I think the other bid was late August. So it's certainly a favorable time frame for completion. We're a little concerned about lead times in the current environment. This, of course, is part of the implementation of our plan. You've seen the details of it, and included is some of the renderings that they provided for our product. Some of the coloring might not be exactly the same, but it essentially shows you the product and the scale of what we're looking at. So With that being said, we do have a low bid of the 256,823.41 with bid states, and proceed, we recommend we go with the low bid.
Ron, I don't have the person's name in front of me, but we received an email a couple weeks ago from the one citizen that sent us renderings, actual photos of the playground equipment that had the mother and child type swing.
Double swing.
Would this be a good time with this vendor to say we want to incorporate a few of those?
Yeah, we can make that adaptation to one of these locations or both. We haven't installed that yet, so we're still vetting through that type of product. I think the best location would really be in our main playground, in adapting some of that location, because it's pretty limited here with the size of the swing structure.
Right.
To offer everything, because you do want to have accessible swings as well as regular swings, and there's more opportunity over there to put multiple antennas.
I'll put them look at that, doesn't seem like a great concept.
Does this incorporate the nature play?
Yes, that's not part of this bid, but the nature play is an extension of our shelter 3, so it's an additional area, and I don't know that we have a site plan over there, in this information. But it's kind of if you recall, it's kind of the first level is this equipment, and the second level actually goes to the perimeter of the trail and the woods, and that'll all be, nature play, and the city will do that. Outside of the
So are we redoing the equipment here at the Tower Park too, at the main park?
That's not part of this bid.
No, I know it's not part of this bid, but is that on the agenda to do?
Yes, it's something that we looked at, we haven't stacked anything or done anything beyond.
This one, how much would the savings be significant if we added that to this?
I don't think so.
I guess there's not a lot of earth moving, not a lot of stuff like that.
It would be a
Just
replacement.
installing equipment replacement, so. And I've been getting a few emails about 1 to 3 year olds equipment, their equipment might be too old, a little bit more challenging for them. So I do agree with this as the main spot, but we incorporated any of that in any of these
Yeah,
spots?
these playgrounds are smaller and they're scaled a little differently, and they actually have age groups out there, I think 3 to 13 or something in that range, is kind of the range for both of these. So there is stuff for smaller
I
children.
think a natural place where maybe younger kids will run over there. But people were wondering 1 to 3, I think. It's not the crazy, anything like that.
Does this type of equipment ever come with warranties?
Oh, absolutely. They all come with warranties. The issue with playground equipment is just maintaining it. There's a high standard for the maintenance of it. You have to be certified. We have on-staff certification. We have to inspect it every year. The fall zones, the surface material has to be measured and verified. These actually call for a permanent surface. So it's an accessible surface. It's not the playground mulch like we see in what we typically.
Or AstroTurf.
Yeah.
And that's included in this bid?
It is.
And that's what added a lot to
Is
the
that a cost?
cost.
Why is there such a difference in cost?
Between mulch and this.
No, between the two bids.
No.
Well, I think it's like a lot of things. I mean, if you want the Cadillac version, if you will, is that an old expression, the Cadillac version? Some people may not know what I'm talking about. LSI is what we spec, and the other bid is LSI. And LSI equipment, for example, is what we use at Rosser Park. So that's LSI equipment. And it really, it's a preference, it's a, kind of different scale of the product. There's nothing wrong with this product, or maybe it's a competitive market, they all kind of find their niche of cost.
I don't want to sacrifice quality for this stuff we've had for how many years now? 15 years, 20 years?
Longer than that.
Yeah. And it's held up, and I mean,
I will say this, there is a life cycle for a lot of the product in the pool. You can tell it's not inexpensive. But they are constantly changing it. It's a lot of molds, it's a lot of standards that change over time. Quite frankly, it gets to a certain time frame, you can't replace parts for it if you don't manufacture it because they're not selling it. And that's what we ran into really with the play area that we had over there by Shelter 3. We couldn't get any parts, and we're finding that to be true here as well. And then if you get into customization, then it gets off the chart in terms of the cost. So there's kind of that sweet spot for it even. So we think this equipment will last a long time.
As long as they're comfortable.
Yeah, I contacted some people that use this equipment, and they were just below that was coming.
All right.
He said that they were wonderful, very responsive, and they highly recommended it. That's what I was worried about, is this a reputable company, because we hadn't done business with
Yeah.
it. And Chris Manning hadn't done business with them before, and he's done business with a lot of the other companies. And so we made sure we checked references and got some good response. So it doesn't make sense to pay over $100,000 more when you're essentially getting the same thing.
If you're trying to get the name out there too.
And if they're watching right now, they're gonna be upset with us.
Is it possible to mix and match playground equipment? This may be you.
You can.
Because I know that there's a
Absolutely.
couple of slides broken over here, I think. So I don't know if it's like, you get a slide from them and they can install it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's difficult to mix and match slide, retrofit to other
Sure.
people's equipment. Because of the standards and the liability of non-compatible competing manufacturers, it doesn't meet the standards that way typically. But you can place them adjacent.
But we
You
do
have
have
to
a
buy
roll of,
everything from,
But you can install.
right, you can't put a
these
slide
slides
from
in.
one manufacturer to a different one.
but we do have a roll of duct tape, so we'll work on
I
it.
mean, in a pinch.
And to your point, and again, there's kind of that break-even spot where you can't replace items, and we've done this, where we've actually had to disable certain features
Yes.
on our play equipment because you can't replace the parts. But there's kind of that break-even point of just how long you can use it and expect to be able to maintain it and buy parts for replacement. And this playground is getting, and I don't recall, we did look at data when we did our comprehensive plan. And I think you mentioned you were on council.
I was on council, so it had to be after 97.
And I wanna say it was in the late nineties when we did it. And don't quote me on this, but I think the price tag for all of that equipment at the time was like $250,000.
Yeah, and I was
By today's
very
standards,
expensive.
would be obviously a lot more. And you've seen it.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. And further discussion? Now we can do a roll call vote, since we're spending money.
Mr. Peppers.
Aye.
Mr. Bowman.
Aye.
Ms. Kelly. Mr. Beazle.
Aye.
Mr. Blau.
Aye.
Ms. Parks. Aye.
Awesome. Thank you.
You said May or June?
June.
Great. June 33rd.
Can I interject something at this point? Just some things I learned from my involvement with OKI and their meetings, monthly meetings. It came up that the American Rescue Plan, it looks like we're gonna see $3 million from that. And, it's still kind of up in the air what can be spent on, but they said infrastructure is yes, anything infrastructure, sidewalk, street repair, or whatever. So, EV charging stations were on the list, you could spend this on that, or spend, the rescue money on that. So, I just wonder how that's gonna be determined, who's gonna be involved in those discussions as to how that is allocated.
As part of our discussion with the finance committee, but a lot of it has to do with getting the rules and regs.
Yeah,
It's
I know
still
it's
up
not
in the
all
air.
100% determined.
Yeah, we had a meeting, I guess, last Tuesday, Judge Pendry was describing different things, and again, it was, a lot of it's up in the air, because people are doing exactly what you said. We think it can be used for this, we think it can be used for that, but they haven't actually decided that yet. So
Yeah.
that becomes a little bit difficult, but yeah, that's part of the discussion for the finance committee.
Yeah, so what we do know is it's likely to be split into two different budget
Right.
years.
You get half now.
And the Justice Department has 60 days from passing, so we're expecting some corrections from the federal government to the states in the next, by mid-May, but probably within the next 2 weeks, we'll start to know more about that. So we'll bring that up in finance committee when we have information, because we'll be working on our budget at the same time.
It's gonna, I think after you get the first payments, it's a year before you see the second half.
express stuff.
It's called a comprehensive plan.
Right.
It's a whole list
Yeah, but I just,
of what we can sit on.
that's just a single discussion. Okay, thanks.
There is another item on, under new business that we put on here, the 2021 street program report. And that's also in the packet.
It's page 12, and I don't know if you want to report that out, typically it's consistent into the record. We had our public hearing on March 23rd.
All right, are we into the record? Mayor and council, the undersigned members of the Public Works Committee of Council hereby report that a public hearing was conducted on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021, regarding the city's proposed 2021 street resurfacing program. The 2021 street resurfacing program consists of the following streets: Waterworks Road and Wilbur's Lane. Committee members and staff conducted the hearing, which was attended by approximately 35 residents and property owners, 10 of which addressed the committee. Generally speaking, there was support for the proposed improvements outlined within the attached engineer's comprehensive report. Residents on Waterworks Road expressed frustration with the length of disruption for the SB1 project that replaced the majority of the storm and sanitary sewer on the street. They also expressed concern over specific items related to the restoration of this project. Several residents asked questions specific to drainage issues on the street. A couple of residents requested that the street be designated with a more favorable resident cost share split. There were requests for consideration of speed bumps and lower speed limits. Generally, questions were addressed at the hearing, and staff will provide follow-up to other issues discussed. Based upon the results of the public hearing of the Public Works Committee of Council, hereby recommends that the city proceed with the street resurfacing improvements as proposed, and that the Board of Council authorize the first reading of the ordinance acknowledging the city's intent to proceed with the project.
Okay, reading of it is later on the agenda. Thanks for the report, Ken.
I'd like to follow that up real quick, though, is, what do we need to do to, maybe possibly lower the speed limit on Wilbur's to 20, maybe, they asked for maybe not a through sign. I mean, we are widening that by a foot, making it, beautifully flat. That is gonna be a high speed, it's gonna attract more people to go a little faster on there. People already cut through it as it is, and they're requesting speed bumps. So would we, make a motion maybe to take into consideration in the public safety, as we have done before, and just talk about it since we're meeting next week, maybe we have a 5-minute discussion on it prior to the interview, since we're already meeting. I don't think it's a big ask. I am concerned that street is straight and then wide in it, and see if we can at least try to help them out, in that aspect.
I agree.
Make a motion to send a consideration for reviewing the speed limit on Wilbur's, along with possible signage to help.
You're suggesting be referred to committee?
Yeah, refer to the public safety committee, please. Make a motion to do that.
Sure. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Okay. For 2 minutes, great.
Thank you.
We are down to Finance Committee report on disbursements.
Report of disbursements, March 13th through April 16th, 2021. General fund, $176,581.60. Public Works KDOT fund, $84,067.83. Recurring debt service fund, $2,881.76. CP revitalization, $180,140. Waste fee, $95,701.82. Talisa Fire Pension Fund, $1,519.07. Total, $541,092.08. Waiting undersigned numbers in the Finance Committee recommend that warrants number 9062 through 9198 be approved and the treasurer be authorized to issue checks for their payment. Mr. Kendrick, J.
city administrators and other elected officials and county attorneys in other cities, and I just believe that the good does not outweigh the bad in this at this time. And I do appreciate all the work they did, but unfortunately, I'm not for this just yet. I'm voting no.
I'm
All right, ordinance approved.
Ordinance amending the text of the official zoning ordinance in the city of Fort Myers, Kentucky to include short-term rental as a listed permitted use in residential zone, section 10.2, residential zone R1AA, subsection B, accessory uses, number 6, short-term rental, section 10.3, residential zone R1A, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.4, residential zone R1B, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.5, residential zone R1C, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.6, residential zone R1B, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.7, residential zones R2, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.8, residential zone R3, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.9, residential zone R5, subsection B, accessory uses, number 5, short-term rental, section 10.10, residential cluster development, subsection M, accessory uses, number 1, short-term rental, section 10.11, central business district, subsection B, accessory uses, number 4, short-term rental, section 10.12, general commercial zone, subsection B, accessory uses, number 4, short-term rental, as well as under Article 13, off-street parking and access control regulations, section 13.2, specific off-street parking requirements, types of uses, short-term rental property, required number of parking spaces, 1 off-street parking space per rental contract. That the city of Fort Thomas official zoning ordinance is amended by the addition of the short-term rentals and their authorization in certain zones. Provisions are made in regard to parking spaces for short-term rentals.
Move approval.
Any discussion?
Yeah, cause I missed that whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Patrick. Mr. Bowman. Ms. Kelly. Mr. Beasley.
Aye.
Mr. Blau.
No.
Ms. Brown. Aye.
All right, we're down to ordinance 04, which is the first reading.
This, I'm just gonna read the titles, because Tammy didn't get the summary from you yet, but we can do this next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Ordinance 004/2021, an ordinance fixing the time and place of holding all regular meetings and all standing committee meetings of the Board of Council of the City of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky.
And that really just addresses the fact that we're here. And we're going to be here for a while, so it just sets it so we don't have to do special meeting notice and everything.
Now that we know that.
Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, ordinance 05.
Ordinance 05/2021, an ordinance providing for and ordering the street improvement of Waterworks Road from its intersection with Memorial Parkway to the city's corporate boundary of the city of Bayport, and Wilbur's Lane from its intersection with Highland Avenue to its intersection with South Grand Avenue, all in the city
I would just add, and I've stated this, we've worked with the city of Newport, and to date, they are still on board to do the remainder of waterworks, all the way down through the park.
Is the part that's really good now, gonna need to be redone? I mean, there's a little section of waterworks that's.
They replaced a bridge down there, the state actually did that, so it'll pick up more than that.
Yeah. That seems fine.
Right.
It's on the Newport side.
It's all right.
No, I'm just like, thank you for working that out. I mean, that,
Okay, we are down to municipal orders, we have several of those, number 5.
Municipal order MFI 2021, and municipal order reappointing Aaron Crowell as a member of the design review board for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting his term of office.
You want to go individually or just read them all?
Should we go there?
I think we should do it.
Okay.
Move approval.
Can I do? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Not spending money and it's.
Okay. Okay, those things.
Municipal order MA 6 2021, and municipal order reappointing Mark Steinauer as a member of the design review board of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting his term of office.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye. Okay, opposed? Thank you. Okay, I'll get this better. 7.
MA 7 2021, and municipal order reappointing Jack Sackenheim as a member of the design review board of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting his term of office.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can get this now. Great.
Municipal order MO 8 2021, and municipal order reappointing Bart Thomas as a member of the design review board of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting his term of office.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Municipal order MO 9 2021, and municipal order reappointing Carol Dixon as a member of the board of adjustment of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting her term of office.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Municipal order MI 10 2021, and municipal order reappointing Mark Leopold as a member of the Fort Thomas Street Commission for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting his term of office.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Municipal order MO 11 2021, and municipal order reappointing Steve Dower as a member of the board of adjustment of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting his term of office.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Municipal order MI 12 2021, and municipal order reappointing Susan Lingard as a member of the board of adjustment of the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and setting her term of office.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, yeah, we're gonna pause. I was gonna say your comment, you wrote it down. Go ahead, say it. No, you.
I was actually going to do research, and I made this comment a couple months ago, but I didn't get an opportunity. But you look at the reappointments, these are all reappointments.
Yes.
And I guess I could make a point without knowing it for a fact. I would say there's probably over 100 years of service just among these people. It would speak to our community with the volunteerism. And these people get zero payment for their time, and they re-up repeatedly to contribute to the city. And I know there's some people sitting in our audience that I could say the same thing about, and I will.
Yes.
We thank you.
Yes.
But there is an incredible dedication to our boards and commissions, and when the time is maybe more appropriate, we should find a way to honor those people in some way, acknowledge them. So, great folks, I know Tim was on the planning commission a number of years ago. It's hard work, it's necessary work, but we have great citizens in our community that help so much. And we appreciate them. And again, it might be more impressive if I had another 120 years. of service, but I think you get the point. Great folks doing great work on behalf of the city. And I know number of areas, including.
If you weren't gonna say it, I was going to, because you put that in the report, and I thought that was well taken. And the speed at which we did this is in no means indicating we really care about these people and what they're doing. It's just, we can be efficient in getting through the process. So, yes, we are blessed in Fort Thomas to have a lot of people who care a lot about the city and volunteer a lot of time. And I'm very, very grateful. So, we have 2 more items left.
I would like to piggyback on that a little bit, and it's not to take away from that by any means, but there are people on this list I do not know. I know they volunteer a lot of time, and we are voting on them on your word, which is fine. You guys do a great job. But I would like to know if it was possible to get a little bit more background on some of these people, so I get to know them, because they do give back to the city. So something about each individual, how long they've been on, maybe the next time we'll reappoint someone, because I think it is important for me to know who So, please.
And all the more reason that we should have an applicant. At
I,
some point.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. I
So
don't
that we
want to
can
take
show
away
them
from what you did, but they have donated a lot of time and energy, and I would like to know them better.
That's a great idea. Awesome. Okay, 2 executive orders. What's the first one?
Executive Order EO 1/2021, an executive order appointing Christopher Vance as a police officer of the city of Fort Thomas, King County, Kentucky, and setting his compensation for the fiscal year 21-22.
Awesome. And another executive order.
Executive Order EO 2/2021, an executive order appointing Jeremy Moore as a police officer for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, and fixing his compensation for the fiscal year 21-22.
Awesome.
And Chief, I believe we'll have that at our next meeting, correct? Yes, sir. So you'll have an opportunity to meet those officers at our meeting.
Did we cover what you folks were concerned about, or do you have issues that you want to bring to us?
As long as the parades are through, we're good.
Yeah, what's going on with that? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, I'm sorry, I was gonna get into something.
Yeah, I mean, we're working with, the YMCA on their part of it. Our intention is to move forward. We're going to plan it and be conscious of, all the protocols that'll be in place at that time. But, we'll try to do something that's fair and reasonable that the community can be a part of. So
There's no doubt that everybody wants to have an honest committee, so.
Look at my golf cart will be in the parade.
Yeah.
If there's one or not, it'll be right up and down the road.
My thought was when you were talking about meeting these people on the boards, we kind of send the invitations out, we send out who's been here from the prior year. But what if we invite them to be part of our parade and have their own, either they walk together, their own banner, or then, that way maybe more people will know who they are if they're interested in that.
Great idea.
Thank you guys for everything, seriously. It's no easy task to put all this together in this year.
We're looking forward to it.
You guys are, like he said earlier about a lot of people that are underrated, you guys are great at the top.
So can we send out the thing, or are we still waiting? Should we send out?
No, I think we're proceeding. It's just working through the details.
Okay.
If I have to tweak a few things to make it work, but that's the intention.
So we
And
can
by the way,
send out an application.
And by the way, it would be the 3rd of July, not the 4th.
Right.
Yeah, I did see that.
Right.
Just so we're clear.
So why are we doing this? So when we do the parade, didn't we rule to do it on the 4th every time?
Yeah, but it's Sunday.
On Sundays, we don't, because.
On Sundays, okay. I thought that, I knew there was something, but Halloween and
Yeah.
the 4th.
Because it's church service, it's on Sunday.
We do the same thing for Halloween, I guess.
We just do it later in the day.
I think the biggest thing for us is I want to make sure that, I know the school hasn't let anybody eat in school. But that's where I put my veterans in the gym foyer. And then, before last, then we had our tiny dancers, because it's over 100 in the shade. And we use the cafeteria for that. If the school's not letting us, then I'll have to start looking for another place, because we'll need to make sure both of those age groups can get in somewhere. I'll look at the churches.
Yeah, like the church might be an option.
Yeah.
I can tell you this much, the city building will not be an option.
Yeah.
And we might want to think about, where we jump as well.
Yeah, I just thought
We have to, because it will be still very disruptive at that location.
And the whole idea is that we go ahead with the plans,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, if there's another outbreak and we have to adjust, we adjust based on
Yeah.
what those recommendations
I
are.
hate we got approval from, just approval from Memorial Day parade. So,
Let's But how did this, did we ever get the signs up for the winners last year?
Yeah, we did. Oh,
Yeah,
that-
Debbie
oh,
and Sam took them
Yeah,
to
we
the
took them
house.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the mayor went,
The
yeah.
yard, the street signs?
Oh, yeah.
And then we're doing that again this year? Because I think that went over pretty well.
Yeah, well, that, or I think Sam had talked about moving that to Flag Day, so I'm not sure, on that part, because then we'll all have to have our meeting and see, you know, if they still want to do that on the Fourth of July, or what they would, they kind of want to
You
do.
talking about the house decorating or the winner or the float contest?
Please?
I was thinking,
Oh, it might have been house decorating.
You were talking about that.
so you're still doing, we're still doing the house decorating also?
Yeah, but that was talked about, yeah, to do that separate than the parade.
I was thinking-
I've been following, someone had marked down about the seniors in the last couple of years. We've had, our grand marshal, but we've also had, people, that we wanted to honor. And I've got 17 people already in Fort Thomas that's over the age of 85. So we'll have to work on how we're gonna make sure we get all those in the front too. But we've been wanting to do that, but I've never had this many before. So I think it's gonna be really cool and see what we can do with that.
And we've also talked about this year, if we were gonna have it, that we would do the first responders on them, since this was such a tough year for them, that, for the nurses at St. Luke's, because that's a big part of our community, that, you know, we would think them honorees or something.
That's great. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
We'll need to finalize that by this time. We're a little bit later getting started, but not really that much. I mean, it's like everything else, the applications come in at the last minute. And then we just kind of adjust from there, that's where we go.
And I would just note, if the YMCA chooses not to be a part of it that way, we'll have plenty of volunteers.
Well, the YMCA hasn't volunteered to help us with the parade for the last 5 years.
And
We've
we've
been
talked to
kind
them
of just-
about the race, and we
Yeah.
still think they can do the race in flights and so forth, and still do that.
Yeah, the
The
last
last-
few years, that's all they've done, because
Yeah, they haven't.
and once the successful centennial, they stopped participating in the.
So we did have friends that we kind of asked to help, but the last 2 times, what we did is we asked the first person in that division for them to be in charge of that division, and we quit doing the hardcore assigned numbers. It's just kind of like, you're in this division, whoever comes first in parks, it kind of goes that way. It worked easier. We see that happen down in Bellevue, and it seemed to work really well, and we tried that, and that really worked, so, we kind of go with that part.
Still on board?
Yes. And we can't do that without Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah, he already told me he would.
That's awesome.
Fred knows that pecking order of all the
Yeah.
politicians, and we don't mess with
We don't
that.
mess with that.
Fred knows, so we let him take care of that.
That's awesome.
Is everybody familiar with Earth Day coming up this Sunday too?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Linda was telling me about that earlier, it's been pretty.
So everything's gonna be outside, we're not doing anything inside, I'm helping Chuck Color with that. And then, it's a lot smaller, but we wanted it smaller so it could be outside since we didn't have it last year. And then maybe build from there, but I think we're all gonna like it better outside. As long as the weather cooperates, then I think then that's where we'll look at it, you know, for next year.
It's all here at Tower Park with
It's
few vendors.
well, we'll have the electronic recycle truck will be back here. Everything else will start on the corner and then go to the museum and down the museum parking lot. We'll have a beer truck, food truck, and groceries and vinyl.
That's advertised on our city website.
Yeah, yeah,
I saw it someplace.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
we'll be depending on the Facebook page as well.
Yeah, it's up on there too.
It's been in Fort Thomas Matters too.
Just to make sure it gets out there again this week, so I just want to reiterate that, that's great.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Here,
you want to use this meeting?
What's that?
Executive session.
No.
I'm